Dumerang, Sanbonani, good day, Shem, Moloeni. So welcome to our live stream, which is about education researchers responding to the lockdown. My name is Selsedi Sinamele Matlala, and I'm from Chat Education Services. I'm based at an M&E unit, and I'm working as an M&E researcher there. So, but today we're going to talk about a very hot topic, which is about going back to school versus reimpose the lockdown. So we are going to hear a view from an inside experienced researcher's perspective. So ladies and gentlemen, to join in today is Dr. Nick Taylor from Church Education Services. So Dr. Nick Taylor will share his insights on the findings of the report that they've, or a research report that they've conducted during the research bootcamp, which was led by Chat Education Services. So, and he will also share the current efforts of returning to normal schooling setting. So I will just introduce him so that guys, you get to know him before we start talking to him. So Dr. Nick Taylor, as I said, is a senior research fellow at Chat Education Services. He earned his doctorate in mathematics education and is acknowledged as a leading researcher in the education field in South Africa. So Dr. Nick Taylor is well known as an author in the fields of education policy, school effectiveness, and school improvement. He has authored, co-authored, and edited a number of publications, including academic journals, articles, books, and has presented at many conferences, often as the keynote speaker. So today he will share to us about the issues of going back to school versus reimposing the lockdown. So this is a very, very important subject or topic, given that it will also help us understand the experiences of teachers having to go back to school and the experiences of learners, again, having to go back to school. So this will be very, very most interesting topic for this week. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting further time, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Nick Taylor. Welcome to the stream.
Hi, Lesedi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Nick Taylor, perhaps we'll ask you questions, maybe after you have shared your insight or your presentation with us regarding the issue of going back to school as well as reimposing the lockdown. So perhaps it's fair to hear from you first, then we'll maybe follow up with questions. So over to you, Dr. Nick.
Thanks, Lesedi. Yeah, I will get to talking about the research project we did earlier in the lockdown. But first, I want to talk about today's hot topic, the topic of the week, in fact. Should we go back to school? Well, we are going back to school. Should we stop that and reimpose the lockdown on our schools, or should we continue opening our schools progressively as we've been doing over the last week or so? I mean, there are arguments both for and against. It's a very difficult topic because, you know, while I'm going to expound a scientific point of view here, which points towards opening the schools for all the kids, sending them all back full time. That's what the science says, but my heart says, oh dear, I'd hate my granddaughter to go back to school now. So, you know, fear and science are in constant battle with each other. Have we got those slides, Charlene? Are we getting a slideshow? We don't seem to get it coming up. Anyway, we'll proceed without the slides. I hope I remember everything. Colleagues, in favor of kids being at school, there are really an overwhelming arguments in favor of that. First of all, children are not highly at risk with this virus. I mean, the evidence is very clear from one country after the next that children under the age of 19 or under the age of 20 hardly ever get sick. Where they do get sick, they don't get very ill, and they almost never die from this thing, unless they've got some other complication. The death rate, the serious illness rate amongst children under the age of 20 is negligible, or both negligible. Furthermore, because children get it quite lightly when they do get it, they don't pass it on nearly as virulently as adults do. So, children are the most low-risk category in our society. In fact, there's almost no risk of danger to them, unless they have a problem with their health, in which case they must practice social distancing and stay at home. So that's the first aspect. Kids are not high-risk category. The second aspect is they get a daily meal at school. Our poor children, which constitute 60 to 70% of the population, get a meal, at least one meal a day at school, and for some children, that's the only food they get. So, and we know that under the lockdown, since the virus started at the end of March, there has been widespread hunger in our country. And, that's really disastrous for children. For young children who are undernourished, they grow up stunted. They don't grow up to as big as they could have been. And they suffer all sorts of deprivations from that. So hunger is a massive factor telling us to send the kids back to school. We've got to get those food programs going again. We've got to get our children fed. This is really a very, very seriously detrimental issue to their health and to their whole future, in fact. So that's really important. Furthermore, we could use the schools as conduits to get food to poor families. So we could have a procedure where we not only feed these children at school, but we actually send parcels of food home for them to take for their parents. There's massive hunger in our country, as I said, and food is not being systematically distributed to poor families, and that would really be a very effective way of doing it. Third reason why children should go back to school is because of health issues. Children are missing screening for HIV, for the biggest killer in this country by far, tuberculosis. I mean, TB kills more people a year than the virus will kill over many years. It's just, and school is again an ideal place to screen children for TB and all sorts of other things to prevent their spread and to catch them early. Finally, guys, the reason why children should go back to school is because when they're inactive intellectually, their reading regresses. There are many well-known studies around the world which tell us this. And that happens among poor children again, whereas the middle classes, in fact, because they're engaging with their parents, they're doing stimulating things over the school holidays, their reading actually improves. Whereas for poor children, and it's a measured effect this, over the long school holidays, when they're not active in terms of literacy, their reading skills actually regress. Now we've had 110 days of lockdown. Imagine how those babies who were just beginning to learn to read, who were making good progress with their reading, 110 days with no activity, they're going to have lost many of those reading skills. So, colleagues, those are the arguments in favor of opening up our schools. They are absolutely overwhelming in terms of the welfare of our children. On the other side of the scale, however, there are the teachers. And I said that people under 20 are very, very low risk. Well, people over 50 are higher risk. Even the 30s and 40-somethings are not at tremendously high risks, but the risks start compounding from the age of 50. They get even worse after the age of 60, and after 70, those are the highest risk people, older than 70. So now our teachers, but most of our teachers are in fact over 50. So there is a bit of a problem there, especially the ones over 55 and 60. So I would say, if we want to minimize the risk to teachers, we should tell all teachers who are 50 years and older or have some comorbidity factor should stay at home. And the younger teachers can go back to school. So the older teachers can sit at home and perhaps assist in preparation of lessons, in preparation of materials. So that would be, I think, a way of dealing with this issue of the teachers now complaining they don't want to go to school because they're at a high risk. So I think we can minimize those risks and make sure that social distancing is practiced at school, certainly between the teachers and the children. As I said, it doesn't matter all that much between children because they don't get sick and they don't get badly ill when they do get sick. So, colleagues, I think there's a way of us going back to school through minimizing risks to teachers, even if we don't have children at school every day. Perhaps they could go every second or third day, where they could get more work to do, they could take it home and do it there. Now, whether we close the schools or not, a big thing that the virus has, that the lockdown has taught us, is that poor children are sitting at home idle, whereas middle-class children are getting their lessons streamed to them. They're interacting with their teachers by internet, by cell phone. And in fact, in middle-class homes that I've observed, the kids are active. They're getting pretty much full-time tuition from their teachers. Whereas the poorer children are sitting at home doing very little, if anything at all. They don't have books. Their schools didn't send books home with them. So if the schools do close, I'm making a really passionate plea on this one. Please, they must send books home with the kids, and they must give them programs of work. And they must find a way of communicating with them by cell phone. They must get cell phone numbers for each family. So, you know, I predict we probably are going to close the schools because I can see the teachers are going to demand that. And like the taxi drivers, they're going to get their way. But then I really hope schools then make a plan by sending books home. And the DBE workbooks are the best books for primary school kids. If they can take the maths, the English first additional language, and the home language workbooks home with them, do 2 pages a day of reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not going to get them through the curriculum, but at least it might stop the regression of learning that is happening inevitably every day. They said, I'm going to stop there because I can see that it's going to go on and on now, and my slides are apparently not available. And so I don't want to talk for too long either. So let's pause there. I can pick it up again later, but perhaps people want to interact a bit and ask them questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nick. Unfortunately, on my side, we can see your slides. We can see them. Yes, so we were following a presentation based on your slides. So yeah, but thank you very much for that presentation. It was very insightful. And the recommendations that you gave were very, very, very important. So perhaps maybe I would like to ask, based on the recommendations that you just gave, perhaps how far have they implemented them or actioned them? Because they started with this thing a long time ago of trying to learn from home. But how far have they tried to implement some of the recommendations or insight you shared with us?
I'm not sure, Lesedi. My main recommendation is that, you know, the schools must establish contact with every parent in the school. So every family who sends kids to the school must give the school a cell phone number through which the school can be contacted. So that's an important thing. The second recommendation is the one I spoke about. They must get books home to children so they can work, and they must give simplified work plans so that the parents can know what's going on and they can assist their children to complete the work plan. And then they must set aside 3 hours a day for working, for literacy and arithmetic, and so that it becomes a habit. Now, apparently, the government is talking about sending books home. You know, they claim that books were sent home originally, but they certainly weren't, because we checked that out. But I think that second recommendation about sending books home is, it sounds like it is being implemented. I don't know if it came from me, probably not, but yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. So the other question perhaps that comes out is that if schools are closed, for example, the education sector means is closed, would this influence other sectors as well to close? Because especially other sectors within the government, if SATU is calling schools close out, other unions may come in again and say, well, we're also getting more rate of infections, so we also want to close. Wouldn't this influence other sectors, in short?
It could. But look, you know, the other sectors, except for the health sector, the social services, government people can work from home, and I think a lot of them are. Yeah, by means of electronic means. So it might influence some of them. Of course, it won't influence the private sector, because no work, no pay happens in the private sector. But the other way in which teachers, of schools closing, the other problem is that it does affect everyone else, people who work and who then are going to have to find a way of looking after their children while they're away at work. So that's a big social problem. I think if schools close, they also serve as safe places for people to be during the day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick Taylor. So, but given our inequalities, realities of our country, are parents well capacitated to teach their children at home, or maybe to facilitate the learning process at home, especially given the report that you've conducted about education at home?
Parents, you know, the small study we did said that all parents are battling, even middle-class parents, which is why I say that, you know, not only must schools send books home, but they must send work programs for them to follow. And they must be very, very simple so that the parents can follow them easily. You know, the DBE has put out a guidance to parents. I mean, it's about 100 pages long, and it's, you know, dense and complicated. No one's going to read it. You want to send parents a one-page work plan with really simple instructions. Do 1 hour of English, 1 hour of home language, 1 hour of maths every day. Set aside a fixed time, and these are the exercises on pages such and such and such and such. That's it. Just really simple activities for them to guide their children through.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nick. That's very, very insightful. So, but are we prepared? Are we ready as a country to learn from home or to learn remotely? Because we never thought this would happen. Okay, everyone never thought this would happen, but now it's here. Were we ready before, or are we ready currently? And how will we do that even in future?
Well, we must get books to homes and get instructions. You know, that's all we can do. Keep it simple. Yeah, you know, we're not ready for this, but we've just got to make a plan.
Yeah, fair enough, Dr. Nick. So, but just maybe one more question coming from my side, because we still, even though SATU or other teachers are calling that school should be closed because they want to keep the lives of the children safe, we're still seeing children roaming around the streets without wearing masks, without complying, without practicing social distancing. So what's the difference? Because we thought when kids are at school, at least they're strictly compliant, given that they're teachers who are responsible for those kids. But if they're here, they weren't able to maintain that discipline, etc. So your view on that?
Yeah, it's a good point. So that's another reason we're having them at school. At least they're constructively busy at school, whereas roaming the streets without masks is really asking for trouble. So, yeah, I mean, schools serve all sorts of important social functions. You know, the socialization function as well, I didn't even mention that as another reason for kids to go back to school. They get depressed on their own. You know, studies have shown that kids under lockdown have got seriously depressed, many of them. So, you know, and schools serve a social function. You engage with your friends, you see your friends, you have fun, you talk, you engage, and, you know, it kind of keeps you more sane.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. We appreciate the recommendations you shared with us, and we appreciate the insights and as well as the presentation that you prepared for us. So coming from my side, I think I'm sorted in terms of the questions. My questions are answered and they're clarified, and I hope you also, the viewers as well at home, they're also covered in terms of these, because it is the topic of the week. People, they're uncertain about whether schools should be open or should close. So we really appreciate your time based on that. But before I close our small conversation, perhaps do you have anything you'd like to share with us?
From my side?
Yes, from your side.
No, I mean, my message is really simple. You know, come on, guys, we've got to get books home to kids. I don't really have much more to say about it, and I can't understand why it's not obvious to schools to do that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. We really appreciate your time. And well, your report, the report that we've just touched on as well, you can find it on Child Education Services website. And it also has been shared on social media platforms. So you can get it there and read the full report about education at home. So thank you very much to the viewers. And thank you very much, Dr. Nick Taylor, for coming to the live stream. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.